Let me set the scene. A Wednesday evening in Tallahassee, Florida. You're standing at the head of your own dining table. The one you built. Not bought, built. From reclaimed cypress you pulled out of an old church demolition in Crawfordville. Your two daughters are sitting across from each other. Ivy, 14, is showing Thea, 12, something on her phone. The pot roast is done. The rolls are warm. You even lit the candle your wife bought at that market in Thomasville 3 years ago and never used. Your wife walks in. Late. Doesn't sit down. Stands at the counter. Picks at a roll with 2 fingers and says, not yelling, not even angry, just flat, like she's reading the weather. You know what your problem is, Edmund? You're not a real man. A real man wouldn't need all this. She waves her hand at the table. At the food. At the candle. At you. Ivy's fork stops halfway to her mouth. Thea looks at the tablecloth. Your wife takes her roll and walks upstairs. That was my kitchen. My table. My wife, Twyla Ashford. And those were my daughters watching me stand there holding a serving spoon like I'd forgotten what it was for. My name is Edmund Ashford. I've been building things my whole life. Houses, decks, additions, commercial framing. 22 years in construction in Tallahassee. Owned my own crew for the last 11. Built the house we lived in with my own hands over 2 summers while Twyla and I were still renting a duplex off Appalachia Parkway. Every baseboard. Every cabinet. The front porch where Ivy took her first steps. Twyla and I married young. 21 and 20. She was working at a dental office then, front desk. Smart. Quick. Had this way of making you feel like you were the only person talking. We had Ivy 3 years in. Thea 2 years after that. For a long time, it was good. Saturday mornings at Lake Ella feeding the ducks with the girls. Twyla bringing sweet tea to the job site on hot days. Me building a swing set in the backyard that Thea refused to get off until dark. I remember one Sunday. Ivy was maybe 6. We were on the porch, all 4 of us, eating peach cobbler Twyla made from scratch. Lightning bugs in the yard. Thea fell asleep in my lap. Twyla leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You built us a good life, Edmund." I believed her. I had no reason not to. But something shifted. I can't give you a date. It was like noticing a crack in drywall. By the time you see it, the settling's been happening for months. Twyla started sleeping in the guest room, the one across the hall from ours. My back hurts, she said. That was January. By March, nobody mentioned it. By May, I'd stopped thinking about it as temporary. The hallway between our rooms might as well have been a county line. She stopped eating dinner with us. Already ate. Or not hungry. Ivy would set 4 places, and by the 3rd week, she quietly started setting 3. She didn't ask why. 14-year-olds notice everything and say nothing until they don't. Then came that Wednesday. The pot roast. The candle. You're not a real man. 1 sentence. Said once. Never repeated. She didn't need to repeat it. Here's what I know about building. You can reinforce a cracked wall. You can sister a joist. You can shim a door frame that's settled. But when someone takes a sledgehammer to the foundation on purpose, you don't patch it. You stop building on top of it. I didn't yell. Didn't slam anything. I cleared the table, washed the dishes, and drove to the marina off Lake Bradford Road. Sat on the dock, feet dangling over dark water. Watched boats that weren't mine rock against their lines. A guy 2 slips down was hosing off his deck, radio playing something about a Fox News settlement with a voting company. I sat there until the dock lights came on and the mosquitoes got bad. Drove home. Twyla's door was closed. Light off. I stood in the hallway between our 2 closed doors and understood something for the first time. She wasn't in pain. She was done, and she wanted me to know it. Thursday morning, I went to work. Poured a slab for a commercial build on Thomasville Road. My foreman, Sterling Bledsoe, 9 years on my crew, solid as rebar, handed me coffee at the truck and said, "You look like you slept in your boots." Close enough. Sterling didn't push. That's the thing about men who work with their hands. They know when to leave a man alone. That night, I drove to the public library on East Park Avenue. Quiet section, back corner. Grabbed a book off the shelf, didn't even read the cover. Sat in a chair by the window. Pretended to read. Actually just breathed. The air conditioning hummed. Nobody talked. Nobody needed anything from me. I started going every evening after work. Told Twyla I was catching up on estimates. She didn't ask follow-up questions. That told me everything. The following Tuesday, I was on a roof truss, 2nd story of a new build off Centerville Road. My foot caught a brace. I went down on the subfloor. Heard my shoulder before I felt it. That wet pop, that means something tore. Sterling drove me to Tallahassee Memorial. Torn rotator cuff. Surgery the next week. 6 to 8 weeks in a sling. No lifting, no climbing, no working. Stay with me here, because this is where the roles change. First 3 days after surgery, Twyla was there. Ice packs, medication schedule, drove me to the follow-up. Efficient, precise, like a nurse clocking hours. By day 4, I saw the resentment. Not in words. In the sigh when I asked her to reach something off the top shelf. The way she set my pills on the counter instead of bringing them to me. The way she left for 2 hours Saturday and came back smelling like restaurant food she hadn't brought me any of. Day 6. She was folding laundry, didn't look up. You can't even do the one thing you're good at. Same weather report voice. Same flat delivery. Like she was observing a broken appliance she was tired of replacing. Ivy was in the hallway. I know because I heard her bedroom door close. Softly. The way you close a door when you don't want anyone to know you were listening. Here's what Twyla didn't know. While I was sitting in that library pretending to read, I'd been thinking. Not about saving the marriage, about understanding the math. When a structure fails, you assess damage before you demolish. I called my buddy Oscar Inman. Oscar runs a crew out of Quincy, been through his own divorce 4 years back. Knows the terrain. Get your paperwork in order, Oscar said. Before she does. I hadn't planned to. But then I found out about Vivian Quarles. Vivian was our family accountant. 6 years, did our taxes, managed the business books, handled Twyla's small portfolio from her grandmother's inheritance. I trusted Vivian the way you trust the person who sees every number in your life. Sterling mentioned it first. He'd been at a lunch spot on Monroe Street and saw Vivian and Twyla at a corner table. Laptops open, papers spread out. Looked like a business meeting, Sterling said. Except Twyla was crying. And Vivian was smiling. That was the moment the floor shifted. I didn't confront Twyla. Instead, I called a forensic accountant Oscar recommended. Within 2 weeks, I had the full picture. Vivian had been showing Twyla the complete financial breakdown. What the house was worth, what my company was worth, what she'd walk away with in a divorce. Vivian had run 3 scenarios. 3. Like she was pricing kitchen countertops. The worst part? One of those scenarios had a note in the margin, Vivian's handwriting. With his injury, earning capacity, argument strengthens. She was using my torn shoulder as leverage in a divorce I hadn't even been told about. I sat on that dock at the marina again that night. No boats moving. Water flat and black. Somewhere across the lake, someone was grilling. I could smell the charcoal. My arm throbbed in the sling. I called Angus Upchurch. Family attorney, small firm near the Capitol. Oscar had used him. Said he was quiet, thorough, and didn't lose. How long has this been going on? Angus asked. Months. Maybe longer. Then we move carefully. And we move now. Over the next 4 weeks, I did something I'd never done in 22 years of marriage. I stopped pouring into the house. Monday, the kitchen faucet started dripping. Twyla mentioned it at breakfast. I said, and poured my coffee. Tuesday, Ivy asked about the broken fence gate in the backyard. I'll look at it. Didn't. Wednesday, the garage door opener started grinding. Twyla texted me. I read it. Didn't respond. Thursday, Sterling invited me to consult on a job in Panama City. I went. Stayed overnight. Didn't tell Twyla until I was on I-10. Friday, she suggested dinner together. I'm meeting Oscar. I wasn't. I was at the library. Same chair. Same window. I wasn't punishing her. I want to be clear. I was empty. 22 years of building the house, the business, the life she stood inside of, and the one time I couldn't lift a 2x4, I became the thing she resented. You can't pour from a cracked foundation. I stopped trying. First week, she didn't notice. Second week, you're different. You seem distant. Is it the shoulder? I'm fine. You're not fine. You're being weird. I'm being exactly what you asked for. She went quiet. Walked upstairs. Door closed. Third week, this is when it turned. Twyla came downstairs on a Sunday morning. Hair done. Actual clothes. Not the robe she'd been wearing until noon for months. She made pancakes. Set 4 places. Called the girls down. Sat across from me and smiled like January through May hadn't happened. I was thinking, she said. Maybe when your shoulder's better, we could take a weekend trip. Just us. Like we used to. Ivy looked at me. I could see it in her face. Hope. Raw. Careful, 14-year-old hope that maybe the hallway between those two closed doors would get shorter. That sounds nice, I said. And part of me, the part that remembered Lake Ella and peach cobbler on the porch, that part wanted to lean across the table and say yes. Let's fix this. Let's go back. But I'd been here before. The sweetness after the silence. The effort after the emptiness. Every time, it lasted exactly as long as it took for her to feel safe. Then the door would close. The dinners would stop. The weather report voice would come back. I waited. Tuesday evening. I was heading to the bathroom. Twyla was on the phone in the guest room. Her voice carried through the door. Not shouting, just talking the way you talk when you think no one's listening. Vivian, I tried the pancake thing. He's not budging. What's the next step? Pause. I know. I just need him cooperative for the next few months. Once the shoulder heals and his income's back to normal, the numbers look better for me. I stood in that hallway. Same hallway. Same two closed doors. But this time I wasn't confused. I was completely, perfectly still. She wasn't coming back. She was running a timeline. The pancakes weren't reconciliation. They were a holding pattern. I walked downstairs, sat in my truck, and called Angus. Move forward. All of it. You sure? She's timing my shoulder rehab to her exit. I'd like to go first. Angus was quiet for a second. Understood. Here's what Twyla didn't know. Angus had been working for weeks. My business was structured under an LLC I'd formed 11 years ago, before the house, before the expansion. The house itself was built with business funds on business-owned land. Vivian's 3 pretty scenarios assumed joint property. Angus had the corporate records that said otherwise. The injury? My disability insurance covered the gap. Sterling was running the crew under a management agreement I'd signed before surgery. Income didn't drop the way Vivian projected. Vivian had been advising Twyla with numbers that looked right, but were built on assumptions a forensic accountant would shred in 20 minutes. Thursday morning, 3 weeks later, Twyla came down to breakfast and found a manila envelope on the kitchen table, next to the salt shaker, next to Thea's orange juice. She opened it standing up. I watched her eyes move across the first page. What is this? Exactly what it looks like. You're filing for divorce. You've been planning one for months, Twyla. I just filed mine first. She sat down slowly, like the chair might not hold her. Vivian said, Vivian showed you what you wanted to see, not what's real. The house was built by my company on company land with company funds. Your accountant missed that. Mine didn't. Twyla looked at me, not with the weather report face, not with anger, with something I hadn't seen in years, fear. Real fear. The kind that comes when you realize the person you underestimated was paying attention the whole time. Edmund, I didn't. You told me I wasn't a real man. At my own table. In front of our daughters. You slept across the hall for 5 months and never once said why. You stopped eating with your own family. Then you timed my injury to your exit strategy and called it cooperation. My voice didn't rise. Didn't crack. Just level. Like reading a blueprint. I'm not a real man. Maybe not. But I'm a real good builder. And a builder knows when a structure can't be saved. Ivy appeared in the doorway. She'd been on the stairs. Of course she had. Mom, she said quietly. I heard you on the phone with Vivian. 2 weeks ago. Twyla's face cracked. Not performed, cracked. The mask didn't fall off. It dissolved. She looked raw and frightened and very, very young. Ivy, you don't understand. You said you needed dad cooperative. I'm 14, Mom. I understand exactly what that means. Thea came down behind her sister. Didn't say anything. Just stood next to Ivy. 2 girls in pajamas, shoulder to shoulder, looking at their mother. The kitchen was silent. The faucet dripped, the one I never fixed. Twyla put her face in her hands. When she looked up, the performance was gone. All of it. I don't know how I got here, she whispered. I do, I said. Vivian showed you numbers and called it freedom. But she didn't show you what the house would feel like empty. What the girls' faces would look like right now. She showed you a spreadsheet. I'm showing you the cost. I took my coffee. Walked to the door. Where are you going? The library. Then the marina. Then wherever I want. That's what happens when you stop being someone's husband, Twyla. You get your evenings back. The divorce went through in 4 months. Angus was right. Vivian's projections collapsed under scrutiny. The house stayed with the LLC. Twyla got a fair settlement, but not the windfall she'd been promised over lunch on Monroe Street. Vivian lost 2 other clients when word got around about her side consulting. I kept the house, the one I built. Ivy and Thea stayed with me during the week. Their choice. Twyla moved to an apartment near Midtown. She calls the girls every night. She's trying. I'll give her that. Last Saturday, Ivy found me on the dock at the marina. Same dock. Feet dangling. She sat down next to me and dangled hers. Her sneakers were untied. She never ties them. Drives me crazy. We sat there watching boats that weren't ours rock in the last light. The water was warm and flat. A man on a sailboat 2 slips down was coiling rope, slow and careful. No rush. Somewhere a radio was playing. Dad, yeah, you're going to be okay. I looked at her. 14 years old. Braver than I was at 43. I know, sweetheart. She leaned her head on my good shoulder. We watched the boats. The dock lights came on one by one. She said I wasn't a real man. Maybe she was right about one thing. A real man would have kept building on a cracked foundation, hoping it held. I stopped building for her. And for the first time in 22 years, the thing I'm building is mine. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.